Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Maria. It's a very good way to start this important session. I'm already introduced. My name is MEAZA ASHENAFI. I am the president of the court in Ethiopia. Ethiopia is located in East Africa, very important country, especially in the Horn of Africa. 120 million people inhabit the country, and country very ancient and very historical, but at the same time a bit complicated. So I'm very pleased to be here, and I have to say the session since the opening in the morning has been very dynamic. I participate in many women's forums, and this is one of the most interesting sessions. Congratulations, Maria. So this afternoon we're talking about legal equality and the participation of women in decision making. And someone may ask, why do we have to talk about legal equality in 21st century? But it is what it is, and we have to talk about it because there are still countries where women are legally discriminated. For example, in some countries, women cannot pass on their citizenship to their children. Women cannot independently start a business, and some of you might have seen this. The World Bank has documented the discriminatory provisions which prohibit women's economic participation. In many other countries, again, in family relations, in family laws, women are discriminated. So we cannot take for granted the issue of legal equality. At the more subtle and covert level, sometimes laws are not directly discriminatory, but they are, at the face of it, they look neutral. But those laws also will not help us to address the legacy of discrimination, the historical discrimination. So we need equality laws that bring equal outcomes in terms of outcomes. They have to be programmatic. For example, affirmative action provisions are very important because whether it is in education or in politics, women start from a different place, and the playing field is not level, so we need affirmative action. One of the speakers this morning was talking about how the parliament in Nigeria rejected a proposal for affirmative action to include women in the political process, both at the federal and at the local levels. And this is not a very good decision because affirmative action, temporary special measure, is a right that's already provided in the Convention on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women. So this is more or less what they call customary international law, which is every country has to be abide by these laws. So on the other hand, there are progresses, and we have also to recognize that. Incrementally, many countries have amended their constitutions and subordinate laws, including criminal laws and family laws, to ensure that there is gender equality. Then we talk about laws, but having the laws alone will not be sufficient. It is the first step. It is very important. It is an instrument for us to use. But then there are issues of enforcement. There are issues of institutional capacity. There are issues of women's ability to access justice, because as we all know, accessing justice is not a cheap enterprise. It's a very expensive process. And for most women to access a lawyer, to prepare their case and plead in front of the judge is not is not an easy process. So women need support, and we recognize the role of civil society organizations in this regard, in terms of providing legal aid to women, supporting women, holding their hands, but we need to do more in this regard. Then government accountability is very important. We can take the whole afternoon talking about the challenges that women face when they go to the police, when they go to the prosecution, at the judiciary, and so on. So institutional arrangements are very important, and the role of civil society organizations is critical. So when I move on to the issue of leadership, women's leadership, as Madam Binta said this morning, is a critical issue for Africa. African women have to participate in leadership. Also mentioned this morning, there are progresses. At the African Union level, the Vice Chair of the Commission was reporting about the progress that was made at the level of appointing commissioners, directors, and AU officials. Also, we have to acknowledge the UN Secretary General has adopted a policy to ensure gender parity, especially at the highest level of decision-making within the United Nations, and we have to recognize all that progress. In terms of cabinet appointment, the women's participation in the parliament, data is available online. There are progresses, but sometimes, as Maria just said, we make progresses, but then after a few years, we slide back. In the case of Ethiopia, for example, in 2018, 50% of the cabinet were women. But now there was election last year, and now we have 35% of women in the cabinet. That has to be studied. So we can't take these things for granted. So then the other questions that we need to ask is, what is the impact of women in leadership? Because I want to be accountable. So the last 3 years as the head of the judiciary, I made sure that 40% of women in the judiciary are women. I made sure that, I didn't finish my report. I will tell you more. So in the judiciary was completely neglected, and the salary of the judges have never been revisited. I made sure that 60% of the salary increment was done for the judge as a whole. We made sure that housing is provided to judges, because rule of law is very important, and working environment, working condition for judges is very important. Now our judiciary, public confidence in the judiciary is increasing. Recently, we did a survey, public survey, perception survey, by an independent institution supported by USAID. So 75% of the court users have confidence in court service now. So when women take responsibility, I think we do our best and we show result. And thank you. Thank you. And one more thing, bench book for women on violence, for when women have issues of violence against women. So judges have a special bench book to deal with the cases. Also established special bench for women and children. So that is, the bench is friendly to women, and the women are not intimidated. So we have to be accountable, and we have to try to do our best when we get the opportunity. We have to seize the opportunity. When I say this, I am not indicating that there is no challenge, especially women in this room who have been appointed, who are serving in a male-dominated institutions, in patriarchal institutions. You know how they try to sabotage you. You know how they try to frustrate you. But we never should give up on that. And one other thing, we also need to talk about that. The gap I see is we don't talk about that. We have to talk about that. Trying to keep our post at any cost is not worth it. I think we should discuss about it, and we should confront this kind of, entrenched behavior. So when we come together, women, I believe we do miracles. Before I was appointed as a Chief Justice, I was also involved with women entrepreneurs, and one of them is today in this room, Ms. Sarah. So we organized women entrepreneurs, and we established a bank. You know, Mama Grace was, Gracia Michelle was talking about women's economic empowerment and concrete actions that will support women. So 64% of the equity is owned by women. And now the bank has 100 branches, and all of the branches are named after prominent women. So, time, okay, I'm done. So today, as part of my recommendation, I would like us to sort of bridge the bridge that is given to us by Madam Maria, bridge the experienced older women with the young people. We have to mentor them, we have to support them, and we have to do leadership transformation. And that is one of my recommendations. Second one is we have to document. You know, when we are in leadership position, what have we achieved? This morning, somebody was talking about Maria, when she was a deputy prime minister, she established a finance, Women's Fund for Africa. So is it documented? Do we know about that? So each of you in this room, I am sure, in your decision-making capacity, have done fantastic work, but is this documented? And I like to recommend documentation as one of the outcome of this exercise that we're having today. Thank you so much. Thank you for taking time.
Thank you, Your Honor, but we're running against time. You know, they made me the last on this segment for a reason. We just certified goal number 2 of the SDGs, food security. Now we are about to do goal 5, gender equality. And the reason why we are here today is to talk about legal equality, political participation, political rights, and participation in the public sector. We have heard a lot of speeches today, a lot of recommendations. We wanted time to hear from you, from what you gather from what was said by others. But, you know, sometimes when you come where women are, if you don't make little noise, if you don't make a little noise, then you are not in the women's space. So, or ask that you all please stand for 1 minute. Oh, you can hear me? Okay, all right. So that we stand and sing side by side. Yes, so you can shake up that we get to the next segment, okay? Small, just 1 minute. And it goes like this. No longer man in front and the women at the back. Together we will walk side by side, right? No longer man in front and the women at the back. Together, side by side, side by side, side by side, side by side. Side by side, side by side. No longer man in front and the women at the back. Together we will walk side by side, side by side. Clap for us, Senator. So that's what we are talking about when we talk about gender equality. That together we are not looking for power, okay, but we're talking about walking together side by side. The man needs us as much as we need them. We need to be in the center of all decisions being made. You see how women are keeping the peace. And you see when women are in power, what happened. So it is now open for the next 15 minutes to hear from a few of you what you gather from this morning or on this particular topic on legal equality, political rights, and participation in public life, okay? So I will recognize, right here, and I'm the timekeeper. Got 1 minute.
Bonsoir, honorable assistance. En votre présence, je tiens à rendre un grand hommage à Madame la Présidente Teresa pour cet anniversaire et je souhaiterais que nous soyons tous et tous, puisqu'il y a des hommes avec nous, en 2032, dans 10 ans. Écoutez, moi, je vais vous donner des statistiques et des constats. Le français Louis Aragon avait dit « la femme est l'avenir de l'homme ». Moi, je dirais « la femme est l'avenir de l'Afrique ». Je m'explique. Et par ordre chronologique, vous savez que l'Algérie, mon cher pays, a subi une décennie noire. Et ce sont les femmes magistrats qui tenaient les audiences pour juger les terroristes, et j'en faisais partie. Il y a même la cousine de Madame Benchida qui est là. Et vous savez, quand je partais pour faire mon audience, je me voilais le visage, je mettais les dossiers pleins de sang dans un couffin, je mettais le légume, et j'arrivais au palais de justice et je faisais 140 km où je voyais des personnes égorgées, pendues, etc. J'arrivais au palais de justice d'Oran, j'enlevais mon voile, je m'arrangeais et je montais les escaliers du palais de justice avec mon cartable. Et quand on me posait « alors, et la route ?» j'ai dit « tout va bien. » Tout va bien. Et nous avons tenu. Et la récompense, lorsque, en 1998, le Conseil d'État a été créé en Algérie par la Constitution, le président de la République de l'époque a nommé 15 femmes présidentes de section au Conseil d'État, dont je faisais partie, et aussi la cousine de Madame Benchida. Un autre exemple, on a parlé du Rwanda. Le Rwanda, en 2006, il a voté une loi pour la violence de la femme. Pourquoi ? Parce que 49% des parlementaires étaient des femmes. En Algérie, en 2012. En 2012, le législateur a créé 3 sortes de violences. La violence dans le domicile.
Thank
la
you.
Violence...
Give the others chance. Thank you. Thank you.
Une minute.
Thank you. Yes.
Une minute. La violence dans le lieu de travail et la violence dans les rues. Et ça, grâce à la présence des femmes dans le Parlement, il y avait le tiers des parlementaires étaient des femmes. Donc c'est à nous, ce n'est ni la Déclaration universelle des droits de l'homme qui existe depuis 1948, ni les pactes internationaux des droits civils, politiques, etc., qui ont concrétisé l'égalité de la femme. C'est nous toutes qui devront œuvrer pour nous imposer. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, thank you. And because of time to just state the way forward, okay, and you have more ideas or suggestions, you can send them to the foundation and it will be printed in the program. Okay, I recognize from the room.
Thank you, Chair. The way forward. First of all, I want to thank every woman who is here, especially those who have shared their stories. I would like to follow up on what the Chief Justice of Ethiopia has just said. Documentation, documentation. Especially you African women, however young you are, however old you are, you have got a story. If you don't tell it yourself, somebody will tell it for you and they will just mangle it up for you. My job is to talk about agribusiness. So I have put everything I talk about in this book. Even if it is one little book, it is a beginning. Do you know how it feels to Google information from Africa? And all the examples come from elsewhere. Wouldn't you like to be quoted on Google? Wouldn't you like your grandchildren to read about what you used to talk about? So way forward, document, document, document. I thank you.
Thank you. I've just been told that the next section needs to start because the person who's going to be introducing the next session has to leave, and so we can continue after that. I know she was, but okay. We'll get from her one more. We'll take one more.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much. I thank you for the invitation, and it's a great honor to be here. I wanted to make a couple of quick comments related to the quota, because I had the honor of being one of the people who wrote the constitution in Egypt back in 2014. we made sure that we put a quota for the local councils, because the local councils are like the schools that prepare women for the parliament. The quota there is more important than a quota in the parliament. That's the first point. The second point, representation is not enough. It's representation and making a difference. This is why sometimes you find them 40% of the parliament. The next year you find a much smaller percentage. You just don't want them there to be there as a number, but you want them to make a difference. So they have to be prepared and actually make a difference. The third point, women need to support women. Women do not necessarily vote for women, by the way. Okay? And it's very true. So when all the rhetoric, all the supportive words are one thing, reality is another. That's it. Okay.
Thank you. I would love to give all of you the chance, but I've just been told by the organizers that because we're running late into the next segment and somebody has to leave. So we'll now turn it over. We want to say thank you, and we hope you can give us time. Okay. Oh, I thought she said she wanted to leave.
¿Se escucha? Sí. Yo pido disculpas porque tengo que introducir el siguiente panel, el de empoderamiento, pero es que tengo un avión, dentro de 40 minutos tengo que estar en el avión. Entonces realmente me da pena, pero es que no contaba con el retraso y tengo un avión. Pido disculpas. Pero yo quería decir, me parece tan relevante el tema del empoderamiento político, económico, tecnológico, que no me resisto a hacer esta intervención. Pido perdón por la interrupción. Mi padre me decía, nacido en 1915, qué suerte, me decía, para ser feliz tienes que ser libre, en un contexto donde él había estado en una guerra. Y para mí ese fue el cambio de mi vida. Tengo 60 años y gracias a ese padre fui libre y fui formada y fui educada para eso. Y es verdad que en Europa tenemos un contexto diferente. En Europa ahora esta reflexión con África y América Latina, desde Europa en este momento es más vulnerable que nunca. Estamos en un momento de vulnerabilidad histórica, porque estamos viviendo las consecuencias del cambio climático, nosotros también. Hemos vivido una crisis sanitaria muy grave que nos ha dejado muy convulsos y estamos viviendo o conviviendo en un contexto de guerra. Esto nunca nos había pasado. Entonces, socialmente nos sentimos vulnerables. Creo por eso que es un momento socialmente muy adecuado para llevar este debate y entender lo importantes que son los puentes, y los puentes desde las mujeres. Y eso que me decía mi padre nos lleva a un principio que es, para ser libres tenemos que tener un trabajo. Si no tenemos un trabajo digno, no podremos ser libres. La realidad de África, seguro que se ha dicho esta mañana, la realidad de África es que el 70% del empleo africano está en el sector de la agricultura. 2/3 ocupado por mujeres. Imaginemos la importancia que tiene ese empleo, ¿no? El problema es que la mayor parte de esos empleos son informales y, por supuesto, mucho peor remunerados, 1/3 peor remunerados. La mujer africana ha montado empresas, pero no porque es emprendedora, sino porque no le ha quedado más remedio, por necesidad. 2/3 de las empresas africanas están ocupadas por mujeres, por necesidad. Las mujeres del sur es verdad que tienen un salario más bajo, pero vamos a dar algunas cifras de esperanza. Esa élite de jóvenes que están liderando, algunos aquí presentes, que están liderando la transformación, empiezan a ocupar puestos de dirección en algunas compañías, todavía insuficiente, 15%. En América Latina, 6,5%, muchísimo peor. Pero hay una luz en los consejos de administración, donde se toman las decisiones de las empresas. 25% de mujeres africanas ocupan una posición en los consejos de administración. En España estábamos muy lejos de esta cifra hace muy poco tiempo. Es verdad que tuvimos que poner las cuotas, ahora ya se cumplen. Pero este 25% de mujeres africanas no podemos perderlo, no se puede perder. Hay que vigilar este dato año tras año. Hablemos de la ciencia. La ciencia tiene una brecha de género en todos los sitios. 30%, máximo 30% de mujeres en posiciones como científicas. África, 25%, no está muy lejos de esa brecha. En América Latina es desigual. Venezuela es el único país que tiene un 61% de mujeres científicas. ¿Qué ha pasado con la crisis sanitaria de la COVID? Pues lo que ha pasado es que ese impulso de las mujeres en posiciones científicas se ha perdido dramáticamente. Esto es una pérdida que es inaceptable en una economía del conocimiento. ¿Por qué? Porque han tenido que volver a los cuidados. Ojo con estos pasos atrás que no se vuelven adelante, que cuestan. Lo que se construye durante décadas se pierde muy rápido en cuanto una mujer se sensibiliza con el cuidado y no se hace caso a esto, ¿no? Como se va a hablar también seguramente en el panel de la tecnología, tenemos un déficit muy grave de mujeres ingenieras. Y en un mundo donde la transformación digital y la algoritmia, la inteligencia artificial, necesitamos a mujeres en esas posiciones. El lenguaje de los algoritmos tienen que estar las mujeres. Una última reflexión. La innovación que transforma nuestras sociedades, se supone que a mejor, en el corto plazo produce desigualdad. Siempre produce desigualdad la innovación. Estas brechas, estas desigualdades no se pueden cronificar y para eso tiene que haber políticas que las corrijan. Lo hemos visto con la vacuna. ¿Quién se ha beneficiado de la vacuna primero? ¿Quién? Quien ha investigado y quien la ha producido y los demás después. Y en medio muchas vidas que se han perdido. Por eso el conocimiento, el acceso al conocimiento tiene que ser una de las prioridades para África. Estar ahí. La ciencia ha cambiado mucho. La ciencia ya no es individual. La ciencia es colectiva y multidisciplinar. Hay que velar porque en esos grandes grupos internacionales estén mujeres africanas y mujeres iberoamericanas. Es muy importante diseñar los programas para que eso pase y vigilar para que se cumpla. No solo hacer el diseño. Hoy estamos en el relato. Los relatos que hoy estamos viendo ya están diagnosticados muchas veces, hace muchos años. La diferencia, o sea, no solamente, y mañana con las conclusiones que hará mi amiga y ex colega del Consejo de Ministros, Viviana, que recogerá las recomendaciones. Recomendar está bien, pero la clave es conseguir que pasen. Y conseguir que pasen es compromiso de personas en concreto que están dentro de las organizaciones. Y yo con esta anécdota me despido, pero no me resisto a decirla. Ley de la Ciencia y la Tecnología y la Innovación que impulsó nuestro ministerio cuando estábamos las tres en el gobierno. Muchas dificultades para hacer una gran transformación dentro de los propios colegas. Muchas dificultades para la transformación. Yo tenía la competencia. ¿Por qué conseguimos sacar adelante esa ley? Porque hubo una facilitadora con mucho empoderamiento en el Consejo de Ministros, María Teresa Fernández de la Vega. Aquí lo dejo.